We're like literally about to start shooting. And I think we're starting on the beach with them arriving, we're pulling in and then like coming over the hill. And I just hear this music. And I'm like, the fuck is that? And these two pontoons just like pull up with people like playing drums and tambourines. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, what is this? And they're like, oh, they're missionaries. It's like, what do you mean they're missionaries? Yeah, they come by every now and then. They want to, they're like twice a year they'll come by to try to convert the village. These are like hardcore, like super like Republican Christian, like Bible Belt missionaries. They're out to convert, and they show up and they see the heads on the spikes and the kids tied up and the natives and just like the spears and everything. They were just like, oh my God, like we found it. Like Satan has taken over this village. Like we can convert them. And then they're like, no. It's all fake. It's for a movie. Eli Roth is directing a horror film. And they were just like, what? They were so fucking angry that we beat them to the punch.
What do you do?
I wasn't into the cannibal movies when I was a kid. I always thought they were weird. They weren't really at night. It was kind of always the same thing with the natives kidnapping them and eating them and just these awful people being chopped up in horrible ways, but it didn't scare me. I finally, when I was 19, saw Cannibal Holocaust on Laserdisc. Cannibal Holocaust was a very hard to find movie. And it wasn't until I got a Laserdisc player that sort of opened up to a whole world of Japanese imports and all these other films. It was the first chance I really got to watch a lot of imported movies. And Cannibal Holocaust just blew me away. I really thought he had impaled a girl. I had no idea how he did it. I became obsessed with the movie. I became obsessed with knowing everything about this movie. And what was confusing was watching Cannibal Holocaust, it felt really similar to Cannibal Ferox, released under the title Make Them Die Slowly. You have the same actors in all the movies, basically in the same locations, and they all have American versions of their Italian names. So the whole cannibal subgenre, it took me years to figure it out until I sort of understood what the movies were chronologically, and it wasn't really until DVDs came out. I mean, we're talking about 2003, 2004, like it took a while for these movies to come out, that you could say, okay, it started in 1972 with Lenzi's Man from Deep River, which is a ripoff of A Man Called Horse with Ivan Rassimov and Mimi Lay. That features cannibalism. Then someone wanted to make Last Cannibal World. The producer wanted to make that, and they went to Lenzi and he said no. So then Deodato said yes. The guy who was a genre director. Deodato does it, it's a hit. They offer him Cannibal Holocaust. It becomes an even bigger hit. It's a worldwide sensation. Lenzi gets mad and says, wait a minute, I can outdo him, and does Mangiati Vivi, or Eaten Alive, which doesn't quite do it, but we're like, oh, it's not as good as Cannibal Holocaust. So then he has to do Cannibal Ferox to outdo Deodato. Then there's Amazonia. Then there's a French movie called Cannibal Terror, which is a really weird movie with a fantastic score. And then the last movie, which was one that I recently discovered, I didn't even know about this until after Green Inferno, is a film called Massacre in Dinosaur Valley, which is a fantastic movie. It's a half cannibal movie shot in Brazil, and then the half of it is like they're slaves, and there's a guy who's running a diamond mine. It's a really, really terrific movie. And you can also throw Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals in there, Joe D'Amato's film. And as I started traveling the world with Hostel and going to film festivals and meeting guys like Ruggero Deodato and Umberto Lenzi, and when we had the Inglourious Basterds premiere in Rome, those guys were there, and meeting Sergio Martino and getting to know them, as a director, I could ask them, like, how the hell did you do these? And they're like, yeah, we were crazy. We went in the jungle. I mean, when Deodato made Last Cannibal World, he was dealing with real tribes. And he had to, like, he would say, he would go, hut, 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 if he wanted them to go fast, and then hut, hut, if you wanted them to go slow. And the first day, the tribes people were running, and they got blisters on their feet. They'd never gotten blisters before. And he's like, how have you not never run? How's that possible? You live in the jungle. And they were like, we just, and they would watch animals run by and just dart them. Like running wasn't part of their culture. So you just, I became obsessed with these movies and just how ballsy they were and how insane they were. And I thought, God, you could never make this movie today because the land is all gone. And I thought, that's it. That's what Green Inferno is about. But the original impetus for it was the idea of stoned cannibals get the munchies. That's what it's just this thoughts. And it was actually, I remember Tarantino, when he does this thing called Publishing Day where he like has people over at his house to read scripts. And maybe it was the script of Inglourious Bastards that we were at his house reading. It was either that or Django. I think it was Inglourious Bastards. And I saw Diablo Cody, who I'd become friendly with, and she was a big fan of Hostel 2 and my movies and asked what I was up to. And I was like, I don't know, I kind of have this idea of stoned cannibals getting the munchies. She's like, you've got to make that movie. I don't care if you do anything else, but you have to make that movie. So thank you to Diablo Cody for giving me that kick in the ass. I also thought, if I'm going to do this, I really have to go for it. And I had been developing this system of making movies in Chile with the filmmaker Nicolas Lopez and producer Miguel Asensio. And we did a film there called Aftershock. And while I was making Aftershock, I had about 60 pages of Green Inferno written. And our co-writer on that, Guillermo Amoedo, we said, why don't we just give the pages that you have to Amoedo? And by the time we're done shooting Aftershock, Guillermo can have a draft of Green Inferno. So while we were shooting Aftershock was when we kind of started getting the idea of casting Green Inferno. And the nice thing about doing horror movies at a budget is you can take swings on new people. You know, if you're doing a studio movie, they only want to cast people that are proven successes. And when you make a scary movie, the scare is the star, and I can get it financed on my name. So I could cast pretty much whoever I wanted. Aaron Burns, I think, is a brilliant actor. Aaron was a camera assistant on Aftershock. Now, Aaron's a director in his own right, and he had kind of come to Chile just to clear his head and try a different system of working. I thought, God, you should be acting. We wrote this huge part for him. And then we said, yeah, he's going to be Jonah. And Lorenza was so good in Aftershock, I thought I really need to write something for her that's a vehicle where she can really shine. And Kirby Bliss Blanton is amazing. I'd seen her in Project X. She's so funny. She's like out of her mind in the best possible way. She can go into like neurotic fits on camera. It's so funny. She has these big expressive eyes and gets like these weird little quirks, and I wanted all of that. Daryl Sabara, most people know him from Spy Kids as a kid actor, and then, you know, Daryl's big franchise was John Carter of Mars. But the second movie was all about Daryl's character. He's introduced in the first one, and then of course that was, you know, $300 million bomb. And then that went away, so Daryl was available to do Green Inferno. Ignacia Alemán and Ariel Levy were actors that I'd worked with on Aftershock. We basically took our troupe of actors and wrote new parts for them. The elder, Antoinette Parry, is an actor out of Lima. Now, she's really fantastic. And actually, a movie that she starred in went to the Academy Awards as Peru's selection. It was an Oscar-nominated film. She's a really, really great actor. The reason she did the movie was her daughter is a huge Hostel fan. It was like, Mom, you got to do this. Which is why the woman was Elizabeth Bathory in Hostel 2. It was the 19-year-old daughter was like, Mom, you got to do it. I love Hostel. Like, Eli's great. So it's always the kids. By the way, always the kids. If you can get the kids, you can get the parents. That's how it works. That's how I got Kate Blanchett. It's the same thing. But for the headhunter, Ramon Yao came in. Now, Ramon Yao is one of the funniest people I know. He has a talk show and radio show. He's very, very popular in Chile. Not quite like Howard Stern, but he's someone who just says whatever's on his mind. He's hosted different TV shows there, acted in movies, and he acted in Aftershock. He actually burns me alive in Aftershock. And he's such a funny guy, and he put on the bald headhunter makeup, and he was perfect. And he learned it, and he was very scary. And no one had ever cast him in a scary role because he's always in comedies. Like, imagine Jim Carrey or Jack Black or someone being like absolutely terrifying. And people thought he was real. Like, the American audience that saw him thought, that guy's for real. But, you know, we put him in the black, put him in the makeup, but he's our friend, and we just loved having him. So Antoinetta and Ramon were the actors, but everyone else The witches, the pussycat dolls we call them, the old, like the Macbeth witches, they're all the people that live in the village, prepping the food. So when I gave them the body parts to prep the food, just like prep it like, and they were like slicing meat, I was like, have they done this before?
When your body's under stress, the only way to think clearly is to find a release.
What's wrong with you, man? Everyone is fucking dying, you're fucking jerking off, you sick fucking asshole!
Violence is another way of releasing stress.
I love my characters, even when they're unlikable. Whether it's Cabin Fever or Hostel, people think, oh, these are the typical kids that we're gonna hate and we're gonna fun to watch them get killed, and I disagree. I really don't. I think that the actors are great, and I think that just because people do things that aren't politically correct, nobody's politically correct with their friends, certainly when they think they're not being recorded. I just don't think people behave that way. You know, people are like, why would they say these things? Why would they do those things? I'm like, that's how people are. I don't know what you're like or what you've seen, but that's what people are like. People don't have a filter. They're not so worried about what everyone thinks when they talk all the time. That's how they are. So I also like having characters do unlikable things and doing stupid things. It's all the stuff we can never do.
So here we are in Peru. We were told it was going to be a tough shoot, and it certainly is. It's just not an easy location to film. For a while yesterday, the roads got so bad, no cars could pass, and I actually was worried that we might actually be sleeping in these tents. The crew's been great, the cast has been great, but, you know, this will be the day that tests their patience.
To make the movie, I had no idea how I was going to do it. You know, when I made Hostel, I had this idea, and I had the script, and I met a producer who was based out of Prague, an American who had a production company there that does production services. They'll help service American movies, named Dan Frisch. And we had a meeting in LA, and he's like, if you just want to come over there, I'll take you around. So I bought a ticket, paid for it myself. I probably spent $15,000 or $20,000 of my own money, which I didn't really have at the time, but just to figure out the movie. I went to Prague with him. I stayed there for 2 weeks. We had a great time. We went out every night, had fun, but I figured out, oh, here's the factory, here's where the hostel's gonna be, this is the town, Český Krumlov, because when you go there without the pressure of making the movie, you can really kind of take your time, and you don't have to feel like everything is perfect. You don't have 50 people standing around going, is this it, is this it? Like, I like to do a little recon before I bring a crew in. So that's what I did in Peru. Miguel Asensio knew a producer named Gustavo Sanchez, who's based in Peru, who had, I think, done the Motorcycle Diaries. And so we called Gustavo, and my Spanish was terrible. I didn't really speak Spanish at all. But I went with Miguel, who didn't really speak English at all. And we meet up with Gustavo, who has very limited English at best. And we just said, let's figure it out. We need the village, we need the Echo Lodge. So we looked at different places. I mean, a lot of the places, like where we stayed is where we shot. In order to get this feeling, you have to really go into the jungle. And what we learned was, whether you're 24 hours into the jungle or 10 minutes into the jungle, it looks the same. And I said, okay, what if we go in the jungle and there's like monkeys and it's like we're like in the shit? And they said, okay, well, here's the problem. In order to do that, there's one boat and it'll drop you. It's a 12-hour boat ride. Comes once a day to the same spot. Picks up the people, drops them off, and that's it. And from there, you have to walk like hours. It's just like there's nothing. So we thought that might be a little too much. If there's any kind of emergency, you literally are stuck there in the middle of nowhere. So we said, where is a village that we can go that's close enough to civilization that if there's a disaster, we can at least get somewhere fairly soon? So we went to Peru and we found Yurimaguas, which is where the motor taxis are. It's where they kind of have their meeting. When we went to the port the first time, it was like it is in the movie. I mean, I stuck out, and they were like, they knew that I wasn't from there, and I was dressed differently and had all my cameras and my gear and stuff. And walking through, it wasn't scary, but I was like, it's a free port. You don't have to pay. So everyone comes there, and you look in the river, and there's pink river dolphins jumping, and it wasn't sketchy, but you're in a very poor part of the world. And while I never felt like I was in danger, anything can happen, really. There's no real protection there. And then we said, all right, well, where are we going to shoot this village? So this guy, Miguel, there's my producer, Miguel, Gustavo, and then there's Miguel from Pumarinri Lodge. Miguel takes us into the woods with machete and just starts hacking. And we're walking through the jungle, watching a guy hack up. And he's like, and he'll just turn around periodically, look at me and go, ask like, is this good? And they're like, is this good? I was like, well, it doesn't really look like a village. We're just like in the middle of like jungle. And they're like, yeah, but we could build a village here. And they're like, let's find a little clearing. Then they're like, there's a village, like, is this a good spot if we build a village? And it would be like, the size of this room. I was like, no, we need something that really looks like a civilization. Then I'm thinking like, shit, this might not work, because where are we gonna shoot? And they said, well, if you want, we can just go to the river and just explore. So we get in the boat, we're going up the river, and we're going for hours. I mean, it's like 110 degrees in the burning sun. It's beautiful, but we're like in a little boat, like, and we're just looking, and it's spectacular scenery. And then the guy tells us, he's like, from this point, there's nothing else. There's no more villages. He's like, if we continue for the next 11 hours, it's just, you're looking at this is what it looks like. So we kind of I look over and I'm like, well, what is that right there? And they're like, that's a village. So we pull over and there's like a girl washing clothes, and this boat just pulls up. And she looks at us and she smiles. And then her mom kind of comes out, and they are in straw huts with hammocks, and it's dirt. And we get out, and so I send, the Peruvians out, and they're like, hey, we're looking around. We might want to make a movie here, and blah, 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 blah. And so they're like, yeah, sure, come around. Welcome to Kayanayaku. So we see this thing that says Kayanayaku, and Miguel explains to me that this is a protected area, and it's all farmers, about 300 people in the village. And so Gustavo comes over, and he's like, just so you know, most of the people in this village have never left. The village does not own a boat. So they have canoes, but they only go to the neighboring villages. So all the kids come over, and I start showing them like iPhone videos. And they all are like in 2 seconds taking photos and taking videos themselves and swiping, like they got it like that. So we're taking photos, all the kids were the kids just were climbing on me like I was furniture. So I'm jumping around, I have like 15 kids on me, and we walk around, and all the kids are showing me through the village, and there's bulls and chickens and cows, and I'm looking around, I'm like, this is the village. I mean, there was some corrugated metal, like shacks, like a couple of roofs like that, but I looked around, I was like, it's what you see in the movie. This is what it's like. And then we found out that there were 2 languages in the village. The older people in the village spoke Quechua, and the kids spoke Spanish. And the kids refused to learn Quechua because they wanted to be part of the modern world, and they felt like it was a dead language. They didn't want to learn it. I also found out there were 2 churches, and that the 2 churches had to vote on whether or not we were allowed to shoot there. So I look around, and I said to Gustavo, I was like, can we shoot here? I'm in this village, and I'm like, this is it. Like, if we can shoot here, we have a movie. And I said, can we shoot here? And he's like, first thing we have to do is explain to these people what a movie is, because most of them have never seen one. I'm like, you're kidding me? He's like, no, they have no concept of a movie. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, they've never seen one. It's like, we'd have to come up come back here with like a generator and a television, show them a movie, and then have the village vote on it. So we're kind of waiting, and we get a call like 2 weeks later, and Miguel calls me from Spain. He's like, we have great news. The village elders, the 4 village elders voted, and they said yes to the movie. And one of the churches was against it. And the other church outvoted them and said, this will be good for the village. We'll bring money, we'll bring things like, there's a lot of stuff that we need. Let's let them come here. They seem nice. Let's let them do it. And I said, that's amazing. What movie did you show them? Like E.T., Wizard of Oz? And he said, no, Cannibal Holocaust. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we showed the village Cannibal Holocaust. But don't worry, they thought it was a comedy. I'm like, dicks being sliced off, the impalement, like the hand abortion, no problem. They thought it was hilarious. The village thought we were making a comedy. And I said, why would you show children Cannibal Holocaust? Like, if you ask a 5-year-old kid in Kayanayaku, Peru, what is a movie? They're like, oh, that's where like people are chopped up and eaten. That's like their only understanding of what a movie is. And they said, well, we didn't want to show them Wizard of Oz, and then you show up and you start putting heads on spikes. I'm like, that's very smart. It's like, because that would have been worse. It's like, because then you're there and you think you're shooting, and then you're doing all this violence, they'll feel tricked. If you show them the movie, we wanted to show them how to act, because if you want them to play the natives, I mean, these are farm kids. They don't look like that. We're putting them in makeup. If you want them to play that, they need to sort of understand what it's going to be at the end. They completely got it. I mean, you can say they don't know what a movie is, but everyone in that village knows what a story is. They all tell stories. Everybody knows what make-believe is. Everybody knows what pretend is. They know the difference between a story and real life. And they're just like, oh, this is pretend. It doesn't mean anything. It's not real. You know, they weren't worried about like, oh, is this stereotyping? Is this going to give a bad name to the names? They're just like, this is hilarious. They thought it was funny.
You all right?
Wow, that was fucking amazing.
All right, we're shooting this more after lunch.
I talked to my production designer, Marici, and Elisa, my costume designer. We went to National Geographic from the 60s. We looked at Brazilian tribes, Amazonian tribes, Venezuelan, and like just different South American native tribes. And we took different pieces of the makeup. Like the elder's makeup is from one tribe, from a National Geographic from 1966. And the headhunter, his makeup is from another tribe. It was all based on real tribal makeup that we saw. And we looked at the villages. We were like, okay, how do they cook? What were their ovens? Okay, they dug them in the dirt, or they had some raised, different rucas. They would smoke them. They would cook this way. We really looked at every tool. I wanted it to be a real 360-degree world where absolutely everything was figured out. You understood that we were walking into a society. So Marici, our production designer, is awesome, and she was like fully down for the adventure. And so she went to Peru ahead of everyone and kind of spent like 3 weeks living in the village. We bought a plot of land. We paid them for a plot of land. So I could say I have a house in Kainayaku, and we built all the stuff there. You know, Marici and with their art director, and the locals, they build the cage. They kind of dress out anything that's corrugated metal. We put straw over it so that you could really point the camera anywhere and not say anything that looks remotely modern. And then right before we got there, Marici had to go back to Santiago to finish prepping the rest of the movie. Like our New York City interiors were actually in Santiago, Chile. So the whole village is like gathers around to say goodbye to her, and they're like, we have a present for her. And they're like, we have a present for you. We want to say thank you. We love you. You're one of us. This is your home. And here's a present. And they brought out a baby. And she was like, excuse me? And they're like, here's a baby. And Marici's like, what do you mean? And they're like, we wanted to get you something, and we're going to give you this baby. And Marici's like, I live with my boyfriend in an apartment. Like, I can't. And they're like, the child will have a wonderful life with you. Like, we know you're wonderful, and we all decided that this baby's better off with you. And she's like, she had to politely tell them, I can't accept your gift of a baby. No, thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. It's the baby. It's like, tell you what, it'll be my baby, but let's just have the baby live here with his parents and raised in Kainayaku. How about that? So Marici got offered a baby. So she leaves. Meanwhile, a lot of the people, the elders, the older people in the village, their bodies are too broken down to work in the fields. It's too much for them. But paying them as extras in the movie, it was the first time they'd worked, and they were so happy. They were making more money in 2 or 3 weeks of work than in years of farming. So there was a really good vibe in the village. I mean, I certainly went there with the attitude of like, I'm in your home, thank you for letting me in your home, and trying to learn as much Quechua and other language and learn everybody's name. And they really took me in like family. I mean, they would come in and feed us. They were so nice. And they have a school there. The kids go to a school there, and we built them a kitchen. We're like, okay, if we're gonna feed the crew, why don't we just build a kitchen? But let's just build them the kitchen, and then that'll be part of it. And then they wanted 103 roofs for the houses. They had the straw roofs, and they're like, it's impossible during the rainy season. We want corrugated roofs. So we brought out, 110 corrugated roofs for every house in the village. We're like, yeah, we roofed them. And then 6 months later, Gustavo was like, yeah, they sold them to the neighboring village. They just flipped them, which I thought was funny.
I think we have Ramon chopping, and then frying, and then we'll cut to corn, food, see the vegetables, and then Jonas.
My assistant director, you have a Chilean assistant director, Pablo, who I'd worked with on Aftershock, and there was a Peruvian assistant director, because you can't, all these cultural things that are going on, you can't be like a Chilean coming in telling the Peruvians what to do. You need a Peruvian assistant director. And his nickname was Coco, and he's one of my favorite people. And his English is perfect, and he's a really, really great guy. And his daughter's at UCLA, he was fluent with American culture. He was just an awesome dude. And so Coco also wants to direct. So what Coco did, he brings a video camera, And he starts doing acting games with all of the kids. Who can be mad? Who can be angry? Who can be happy? Who's excited? Who can be quiet? Who can listen? And he figured out, this one's the best actor. Okay, this one that you like, because he sent me photos of every kid with their name.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Clení,
¿Cuántos años tienes, Clení?
6.
And there was one little girl named Glennie, who's the one who takes the leg. And I was like, that girl is amazing. Like, we should have her be the girl. And she's like, Glennie can't act. Like, she's really good. She won't listen. She gets bored. And then like Tatiana is the best one.
¿Cuál es tu nombre?
Tatiana,
Tatiana. ¿Cuántos años tienes, Tatiana?
10.
And Tatiana, she was our friend. Like from the very first day, I was like, Tatiana's going to be the girl. She's going to help Lorenza escape. The girl connection with the flute. So the kids were the best. And they were always coming up with ideas. And so Coco comes up to me one day and he's like, boss, the kids have an idea. I'm like, what? They're like, they caught this for you. I'm like, what is it? They're like, it's a baby python. And he's got a baby python. And I was like, what should we do with it? He's like, the kids thought it'd be funny if you like threw it in the cage at the Americans. I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. So the kids are holding the python and they're like, wait, could that thing bite? And we're like, well, it's not poisonous, but it's a python. So yeah, it's still got fangs. And they're like, okay. I was like, but here's the thing. To the kids, if you're behind them, if their head's here, whether you're here, whether you're here, to the camera, it's going to look like you're doing it. So just drop it back here. They're like, okay. God, the kids are just like slapping them in the face with the python, and they wake up and they're like, ah! You go frame by frame, that fucking thing is its fangs. Like that far from Magda's eyeball. She's about to get her face bit by a python. And then it was funny because people were like, oh, that python looked so fake. The CG, like the stuff, the colors are so hyper real that you're like, no, I don't know what to tell you. That was real. We shot real elements. That stuff was real. A couple CG ants, but yeah, that stuff's real.
Have you ever had fantasies of saving a dying tribe? Of protecting them from encroaching civilization?
The classic structure of these cannibal movies is you start in New York City, you go to the jungle, and you come back to New York City, and what did the main character learn? That's like Cannibal Ferox, Cannibal Holocaust, like all these movies. So I really wanted to follow the conventions of the cannibal genre. My best friend Dave went to Columbia, so I would take the train up to Columbia, and that was like real college. NYU was like a bunch of freaks down in the village, and everyone's on drugs, and everyone changes their sexuality and their hair color, and you don't know what's what. Columbia was still like a normal college. So we'd go up there and you'd go to Zabar's. We'd get those giant pizza slices at Coronet, which could be your entire dinner. Go to the Hungarian pastry shop for coffee. So I wanted to like hit all my favorite spots. And I remember when I went up there were these girls that were sitting on the front lawn. I was like, what are they doing? It's like, well, they're protesting because the janitors don't have health insurance. I was like, you're kidding me. It's like, well, aren't they like students here? It's like, yeah, but they're like sitting out there and starving themselves. And really, they just need a cause.
When do we want? When do we want it? When do we want? When do we want it?
So everything that's in the movie is my memory of Columbia University from when I was at NYU, and I would go up and visit, every other weekend and hang out with my friend. So we got to shoot in these iconic locations, which was really cool. We had 2 days in New York. So everything else, all the interiors are in Santiago. So I wanted it to look big, I wanted it to look beautiful, and we got this gorgeous fall light. Like we started shooting in October, had this beautiful October light on the walkway outside Dodge Halls, and Antonio Quercia, who shot Aftershock, shot it, and we really had a great time. We moved very, very fast. I mean, we had a tough time with the light in the morning outside Zabar's, and the tracking shots with Sky and Lorenza. It just got like way harsher. But every time we saw the yellow taxi cabs, and it just felt big. I couldn't believe that I was in New York City on location shooting a movie. It was really my dream, and to be shooting a cannibal movie was pretty special. This is the first movie I've directed since Hostel 2, which I shot on film, and everyone's like, shoot digital, shoot on C300, it'll be fast, it'll be easier. I'm like, I get it. I'm not like gonna be a purist if I only shoot film. We're shooting in the jungle, we gotta be practical. This fucking asshole erases the footage and doesn't tell anyone and fucking splits. So Aaron, who's playing Jonah, fucking hacks the card and recovers it. He was up all night. We were gonna have to reshoot everything. I mean, this is like once in a lifetime location. Like Zabar's like, you get 2 hours Sunday morning. Columbia's like, you get 2 hours Sunday after. Like, the time was so strict. Hungarian pastry shop, okay, if it's on a Sunday between this hour and this hour, you guys can shoot. And we did it. And it all went great. And this fucking asshole erased it. And he knew he did it, and he didn't tell anyone. Even if he had told us at the time, like, shit, let's go and reshoot. So Aaron, the genius, stayed up all night hacking it. We were fucking furious at the Bond company for insisting that we use this guy. And then we went back to Chile, and we got our footage. We got out of New York. Then we went to Peru. We got to the location. I'm just getting everybody there. So first we have to go to Tarapoto. Then we have to get in like vans from Tarapoto out to Chazutas. From Chazutas, you get down in little boats. We had 5 boats. One of them was Miguel's cousin. We like hired all those boat people, all the boat drivers that we saw that first day, we hired them to take us back and forth. Like, and we're like, they're gonna be there like to take us home, right? Because you basically had to pack an overnight bag every single day because if the river rose, it'd be too dangerous to cross back.
So it's 3 o'clock, and we need to finish the sequence and get back before the storm comes so we don't get stuck here.
Oh God. Oh God. Fucking boat. Let's do it.
So we get on the boats, and everyone's like vegging out, and everyone had their headphones, their music, and you'd kind of zone out for like an hour or 90 minutes. You'd be in the boat by 6, and then we get to the village around 7:30, and it's like loading in and loading out every day. We didn't leave anything in the village. I mean, we set up a tent for costumes and wardrobe, but all the camera stuff, everything, we couldn't leave it there. We had to take it back in case something happened, or, you know, to make sure it didn't get rained on. I mean, there's storms all the time, and there's really nowhere to protect it there.
The spot we wanted to film over here is no more because there was a flood in the Andes. And when there's a flood in the Andes, about 2 days later, it hits down here in Peru.
The thing about shooting in Peru is the landscape changes. I mean, there was one day we were shooting the village, and they were like, normally you kind of had your feet up, or like lying down, and we're just chilling as we like cruise the set. But they were like, the boat driver was nervous. And he's like, everyone, life jackets on, you sit there, you sit, and he's balancing us by weight. And we sit there and we're like, oh shit. I'm like holding Lorenzo's hand, and we're like, fuck. And it's just going through the rocks and the thing, like it was sketchy. Because if we had flipped over or one person went out, there's no recovering them. I mean, there's nothing. There's no phones. We couldn't get to shore. We couldn't call anyone. You couldn't jump in after them. It was very scary. And there were just villages would just get washed out because the river suddenly is up to here. And the shore where we shot the arrival was completely gone.
Oh my God, the canoe beach is totally gone.
So they had to like catch our boat, hold it, hop out, like pull it up onto the grass. Like, and they say this is what happens. You know, these villages just get washed away. So when we went to scout the river, I had a whole thing where there was a log where they were going to be crossing, and then it was going to break, and then the thing, it was gone. The whole landscape had changed. So we found a rock where we could put Lorenza that looked like she was in the middle of the river. Lorenza has a rope around her, and we're holding her so that she doesn't drown by a rope. So they had a code word of like cuerda, cuerda, like the cord, like that was like the I'm really in pain, like cut. So when she grabs the rock, I don't know what happened, but the current was so strong, it was like pulling her, and the rope went like under her ribs, and she started screaming like cuerda, cuerda. But it was so loud. I was like, wow, Lorenzo's really giving an amazing performance. I mean, there's no monitors, there's no headphones. We're like, Antonio's shooting it, and we're kind of like looking at the little thing. I'm like just standing looking at Lorenza, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, she's amazing. She's really good. She's screaming, and we yelled cut, and she was like, and she goes like, fuck. I was like, what? We didn't know. It's really good. I'm like, before you know, it's real. Like when she's screaming for her life, that's real.
Let's go.
We were shooting in what we called the hellhole, where we had to have the kids tied up to the trees. Now the problem with the trees is they're filled with Azula ants. These Azula ants, I probably should have done a better job setting this up in the movie. If one bites you, it's like having a bullet wound for 24 hours. Apparently it's the single most painful bite you can have from any insect. So the Azula ant is the poison. It's incredibly toxic. So these ants are all over, and they're this big. So we have to smoke out the trees. They're like, no problem. So we basically have to like sort of light the trees on fire, to start smoke to get rid of the ants. And then everyone's like, okay, actors, come here. We duct tape everyone's ankles so you wouldn't have a crack in your shoe. We had to duct tape your wrist, duct tape the ankles, like so that nothing could get in. So it's hot, and everyone's tied to these trees, and they're chained. We looked at how activists really do it. They really chain themselves. We replicated it exactly with the PVC piping, the chains, the whole thing. So we have to, but it takes time to do, 15 activists tied to the chains, and we're blowing things up. We did the big explosion. So I wanted to get everything in just at least one giant master. It's like a 6.5 minute scene, acting out the whole thing. So we get this master, and we have 40 Peruvian police officers that are the guys with the guns running in. Lorenz is chained, everyone's chained. I'm like, action. And we like blow up the thing, and the kids are streaming, and then all the cops come in, and they all got their guns, and the smoke's there. And the whole thing where the guy takes Lorenzo and puts the gun to her, and like Ariel has like shooter, killer, and the guy's the gun to the head, and it's like, what? And and they back and forth, and they negotiate, and he's all streaming it, and we get the whole thing. And I turned to Antonio, and I was like, you got it, right? He's like, yes, he's perfect. Boss, great shot. One slight problem. I'm like, yeah. He goes, no push record. But don't worry, live is so much better. Why film the live experience? And we were laughing so hard. I was like, dude, this is like 100 people in this insane heat, chained up, and he's like, and so I had to go to everyone, and they're like, how was it? I was like, awesome. We may have a camera issue. We need to do one more for safety. And everyone's like, okay, let's just do it. So we go do the whole thing. And then I was like, should we record this one, Antonio? He's like, yes, okay, for you, yes, push record. So then, like, of course, after we get the thing, we're back, and the whole, like, the hotel, I told everyone, they were like, what? You didn't even, like, and that became the joke, and the whole shit was, no push record. I mean, we had the one helicopter shot with Lorenza, and Miguel, like, duct taped a 5D to it and just ran it over the jungle, and we used that for the opening credits. So it was all about cheating. We loved kind of finding shortcuts and cheating. There were tarantulas everywhere. It was Azula ants, poisonous snakes, tarantulas, just even walking out of there. That was horrible, shooting that stuff 2 days in the heat. The village you'd think was tough, but the boat ride most days were really peaceful. And one day we just got this crazy rainstorm. So we shoot, Magda, her escape in the rain and running in the rain. And we had to actually, the 5D and the C300 aren't waterproof, but the 7D is, but the focus is really soft. So we shot that one sequence with a 7D, and it gave it this really interesting kind of rich texture and color for the rain sequence. The night stuff, we had to set up kind of a night camp in Chile. So we went to this one area where we could kind of build just for night for them talking, because we couldn't shoot in the village at night. But that's how we shot that stuff, with them escaping, the guy darting, the darts coming in and getting knocked out. But that was it. Everything else was shot during the day. Plane crash. Pato Aguiar is an amazing, amazing practical physical effects, mechanical effects guy in Chile. And Pato had done the earthquake and the tram crash, the funicular crash and Aftershock. And these were movies we did for nothing, and Pato built this stuff. So Pato has this huge space, which is like a hangar, and we took this airplane, and he put it on a drum. It was 30 feet up in the air. So we put the camera, you could mount the camera inside the plane. And we had a wind machine, and we had everyone. And I remember, to break the tail, he had a guy in a truck with a tree in the back of it, and he's just like lining it up. And there was a thing where it was gonna break, you had to pull it away. It was like loose and kind of on strings that you could pull, but you had to break it with the tree. So this guy's in a truck, I'm like, and everyone's like, you had to climb up this ladder and step in, and the thing rolled when you stepped in. It was so janky. Getting in and out of that thing was fucking terrifying. Like, once you're in, you didn't want to leave it because it was very scary. It was like a really dangerous ride to get off. Like, getting on and off. Imagine like a roller coaster with a car like stuck at the top of the thing and you got to step on it. That's what it's like getting in and out of the plane. So we're there, and everyone's like screaming with the wind machine, and like, I was like, can you break it? And the guy's like, yeah, no problem. And he's just like, and I just sat there going like, oh my God, what am I doing? And we're watching the thing go boom and broke. We're like, yeah! And fucking nobody got hurt, nobody got killed.
Wow!
To roll the thing, you had a Jeep that was like, the thing was like attached to a cord, and they would drive the Jeep and the whole thing would really spin. This wasn't green screen, this wasn't like, we really spun everyone in a drum. That's how we got the vomit effect, everything. It was just, that's why it looks like that, is we really spun everybody. And fucking thank God for that cast, man. They were all so game in 2 days, and the drums was not easy for them. It was hot, they were really spinning. So the truck, and then the truck would back up, we had to like re-spin the back, and blah, blah, blah. But the girl that got yanked out, they had a ratchet for her. He was like gonna suck her out. We were just, it was amazing. Then we looked at it, we played it back, and the thing just, her head just missed the rim. We almost, there were so many almost disasters. We're like, the production's blessed, the production's blessed. We spent 2 days in Chile just doing that crash, and then we took the crashed plane, and there is one national park in Chile that we got permission to shoot at. So we kind of rebuilt the plane crash jungle area there. And we had to, it's funny because you can really see a difference between the Chilean extras and the Peruvian extras. There's a sizable difference, let's just say. So we had to, you see a lot of feet and a lot of blurry people because they didn't want to be in their underwear. And they were like, I was like, man, I miss the Kayanayaku, everyone with like the ripped 12-pack and that lean, you know, muscular body. We couldn't find that. Like, you couldn't find those people, so we had like lots of feet and blurry things in the background and them just kind of running by. But that's where we did the dart sequence and the plane crash scene, and the propeller in the head, all that kind of stuff. Just because you make a movie more graphic doesn't mean it's better. And a lot of times when you put graphic stuff in, if you put too much of it in, it starts to look fake. You know, it doesn't mean it's like more intense. You know, I don't always want all the gore in, because there is a fine line where it just becomes silly. You know, the Monty Python silly pleasure. Stop that. So, you know, I look at that Jonah death and I'm like, yeah, that's what I wanted. That's the most awful thing I could have done to the nicest character in the movie. And when that happens to him, you just feel like you're in the hands of a madman. Like, anyone can get killed. If this guy is gonna die the most horrible death, completely undeserving, then anyone can get it. No one is safe. And Aaron was amazing, man. We had to put Aaron in this eye makeup. So he had his eyes closed because he had the gouges. We built a fake rock that went up to him, and he had to tape his hands because there were Azula ants. And he said he went into some kind of meditative state, just like in his head, like I'm not here, some outer body experience, and putting the fake arms and him squealing and wiggling. He told me after that he has almost no memory of shooting that scene. Like, he was so out of it when we shot it. And then Ramon chopping and the villagers holding him down. I mean, everyone cheering. That was a crazy scene to shoot. I remember it very clearly when he came out of that and he was good. We were all like so proud of him. Also, you know, when Nicholas was tied up and we did the ants, like anything physical like that, being tied up, it's not easy. I mean, it looks uncomfortable and awful, and it is. It's not like, oh, they're shooting a movie, they figured out a way to, and you make it as comfortable as you can for the actors, and don't do things unnecessarily to them. Like, if their hands aren't on camera, they can just do that. You don't have to be tied up. But that stuff is very physically demanding. During the takes, you know, the natives and, you know, the characters, the villagers and the kids, they would say, okay, like, you know, you can like really like grab me. Like, the guys that were 70 years old were jacked. I mean, everyone was very strong in this village. So when they get like pulled out of the canoes, like, you know, the first take they were super nice about it, but Kirby, Magda, Loren's like, no, like really, like, we're gonna go for it. So you like they're like, tell them I'm gonna kick really hard, so watch my foot and grab the leg. And they're like, okay, so I'll grab you here and I'll grab your hand. And she's like, no, it's really good. Like, when I scream, like, you can really. So everyone got very comfortable right away. And like, you know, the first or second take, these girls were like, rah, and the villagers were like yanking them and pulling them. We yelled, cut, and everyone would be laughing. Like, we would all laugh. It was great. You know, and the great thing was, there was a river that was nearby that we would go to wash at the end of the day. Like, everyone was covered in blood, everyone's covered in gore. So all the kids, all the villagers, to wash the red makeup off, everyone would like go to the river to bathe. And it was this weird cleansing ritual at the end of the shooting day where it's like 4 o'clock. Okay, that's a wrap. We start packing up the cameras and everyone would go to the river and we'd all just like jump in bathing suits or like strip down to their underwear and everyone just went in and washed off. And it's like we rinsed the day away and then everyone was sort of back to normal. And then we'd all like kind of get out into our clothes and sweatpants or whatever and, you know, get in the boats and leave. And they were so nice. And the last day of shooting was a very, very emotional day for everyone. The villagers were, they didn't want us to leave. We didn't want to leave. We had such a bond with that community. And they were so nice. And they said, like, save the beer to the last day, because otherwise they're going to get drunk. They're not going to, like, they have no alcohol tolerance. They'll get drunk and you'll lose them. So I remember the last shot, the last day. We did, like, a joke photo of me getting pulled. And they were like, action. They were like, rah! And they were all, like, I had the whole village pulling me. They were aggressive. It was funny. And so we did it. And we, like, got the shot. And that was a wrap. And this like incredible rainstorm started, like just like boom, like explosive. And we all just got soaked and it was like 5 minutes and then this like insane double rainbow came out. And we were all just like washed off the blood symbolically and the rainbow came out and we're like, that's it, this is it. And we gave them the beer and the gifts and we kind of gave them everything we could give them in CDs and batteries and digital cameras and food and snacks and ice cream and candy for the kids, all that stuff, we gave it away. And we got in the boats and I was like the last to leave with the cast because we're all like hugging the locals. We're all like, we're gonna miss you, we're gonna miss you, we love you, blah, 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 and we'll see you. So like everyone else, all the other boats are going and we get in our boat because I was with the cast and the boat driver's like, yeah, and he goes, pfft, and he fucking breaks the string. And our boat just starts drifting. And everyone else is over here and we're like going down the river and like spinning. We're like, what do we do? And the guy's like looking around, he's like, and he's like, the boat's like, stop. We're like spiraling now. I'm like, this is it. We're gonna kill everybody. We're like in the boat. Everyone's like, what do we do? And the guy takes a knife, and there was like a tarp at the top, and he cuts the knife and pulls the rope from the tarp and like puts a knot and winds around the thing. It's like, we're just like, oh my God, this is it. And we're like screaming. We're like, our fucking thanks. No one can hear us because they're all the way down the river. We're like waving at the village, and the villagers are like, bye. Bye. And we're like, no, we're like going the wrong way. We're drowning. So that was an adventure. There was a company called Worldview Entertainment that financed the movie. And they were financing a lot of movies. And we all agreed to do the sequel, Beyond the Green Inferno. We actually had a draft of the script that I wrote the outline with Guillermo, and then Guillermo wrote the draft. And then we were gonna work on it and go into production. And then Worldview kind of imploded. And it was really Jason Blum who saved it. I mean, that movie sat there for a year. I didn't think it was ever gonna come out. And it was Charles Layton at Blumhouse, Jason Blum, my lawyer, Carlos Goodman, every day going, how do we avoid this movie getting lost in bankruptcy court, which is where it was headed. And Blumhouse said, we're gonna start a new division, Blumhouse Tilt, and we'll do 1,500 screen releases instead of 3,000 screen releases. But there were trailers in theaters, there were posters, the whole thing was set, and it really unraveled a lot of the international territories. We were supposed to have a huge release in Chile under Cannibals. That was the title, and there were banners with Lorenza. I mean, imagine that she's from Chile, she goes to America, she does Aftershock, and it comes out in theaters, and then Green Inferno is gonna come out, and the whole release gets pulled. I sort of have this trauma now that even before House of the Clock and Its Walls came out, I was like, when's the release gonna get pulled? Like, I just don't believe anything's real anymore, because anything can happen. You can, some tragedy can happen. They're like, that's it, we can't put your movie out. So until the movie's in theaters, I'm like, okay, they can't pull, all right. That's when I breathe, but even when it's in theaters, I'm like waiting for something to go wrong.
It's almost killed Coco. What? It's almost killed him. It's death by Mahambo.
When I think of Green Inferno, I think of the bugs. I think of Peru. I think of those kids. I think of the snake. I think of getting really baked and watching our makeup department do drag shows. It's just like, is it amazing? You can't do that anymore. I don't know. And everyone made it out okay. No one died.